without further ado, very, very happy to have OG LWB member, actually, Julia Rubiner, who actually came to the very first brunch, and is one of the smartest people and best writers I think I've ever met. She's really fantastic. A long time ago, she and her husband put together a little company called Editorial Emergency. It was copywriting and press releases and all kinds of make yourself look better than you can make yourself look kind of stuff. And it's gone gangbusters for them. They've done really, really well with it. And she's more recently started to do resumes, and she actually has worked on mine and worked on friends of mine, and she is brutally honest in a wonderful way and completely right on every point. So can't fault her for that. But she will make you look really good, and she will make you sound perfect, and she'll really help you do that soul searching you have to do inside when you go, well, what makes me wonderful? She helps you find that, and then she puts it in correct grammar and English and lots of punchy words. And I think you're actually a fan of the Oxford comma, if I'm not mistaken. So. Anywho, she's wonderful for all that. Oh, and she has I'm going to pimp her out because she's right here. Their website is editorialemergency.com, and she has a really wonderful newsletter called Editorializing, which they put out once a month, which is a bit of fun, album reviews and stuff, and also a bit of serious and a bit of wacky. So it's a really, really great newsletter. Anyway, so Julia Rubiner, come on down.
Thank you, Karen. And I do want to say that Ladies Who Brunch has been very, very good to me. So I'm glad to see you guys all here, some familiar faces. Thank you for coming. So I have an offshoot of my company called Creative Profiles, and we do personal branding, which is basically a fancy way of saying resumes, LinkedIn, cover letters, executive bios, anything you need to sell who you are to a prospective employer or clients. And that is an outgrowth of the business Karen mentioned called Editorial Emergency, which I don't really consider impersonal branding, but it's branding for mostly companies and people who make products and have services, and it's a little bit different. So briefly about my background. I've been a writer for my entire career, so that's what I do. And I worked for a reference publisher in Detroit before I moved to Los Angeles, and it was called Contemporary Musicians, and you can find it in libraries, and it's biographical profiles of musicians. And I loved doing that so much. It was like hip and groovy, but I was also really learning hardcore language, rules, etc. And then I started thinking, I was calling publicists to get photos and permissions to use the photos and for information and fact-checking, and I thought, what do they do? And so one thing led to another, and I ended up in Los Angeles, and I got a job at Geffen Records, and then after that I got a job at DreamWorks Records. And I was branding artists. I was branding singer-songwriters, musicians, and also executives, people who worked at the company. I would write the trade announcements, etc. So I started really getting a knack for that, and I had a great boss who was a mentor who really schooled me. Then somebody came to me who was a brunching lady, who said, "Hey, do you do resumes?" And I said, "Yeah, for my friends and family. It's not really a business." And she said, "Can you do mine?" And I said, "Of course." And she got the job, and she's moved up at that, or it's UCLA, and she's moved up at UCLA since then. She's not here today, but she's a really groovy gal, and I'm still in touch with her. And I was like, I should do more of this. Then the recession happened. And somebody I knew from Ladies Who Brunch named Kiva Dine, who has a boutique recruitment agency. She places people in jobs at very cool branding agencies, what do they call it? Action sports companies, apparel companies, mostly designers, people in media arts. So she said to me, "I'm getting about 700 resumes a week, and about 695 of them are terrible. People need help. Can you help?" And I said, "Yeah, let's look into this." And so thus, gradually, a business was born, Creative Profiles, which used to be called TKDA Resume, which stood for the Kiva Dine Agency Resume, but that's a bit much for people to remember. So I've been doing a lot of resumes. There's a real need for it, as you know, because it's hard out there for a pimp. I mean, it's not you. Let me just say, it's not you. It's the way things are. And we need as much help as we can get. I'm very happy to help. And I do a constant review of the personal branding intel out there. There is tons of great information. There are very smart people sharing their information. Some of them you won't be able to relate to, and I think they're full of crap. But some of them I've learned a lot of great stuff from, and I steal from those people. And you'll hear about some of that stuff. So Kieran wanted me to share some success stories, and I'm just going to share one because I don't want to belabor the point, but we'll call him Mr. Z. So I got a request from Kiva. I have somebody who needs a resume. What do you think? How can you help him out? And I said, well, let me see. And I see what he does, and he's a VP at a creative agency in Maumee, Ohio, and his title is VP of Digital Experience. And I was like, digital experience. No idea what that means. And of course, you probably all know that every time you go on a website, you have an experience, and somebody designs that. And that's what this guy does. And he really wanted to get out of Maumee, Ohio. He'd kind of hit the top at this company. You know, he was a big fish in a small pond, and they're a big shop in the Midwest. But, you know, he wanted to get out of Ohio. And he was a great client for me because not only did I learn a lot, because I had to do a ton of research before I could even pitch the guy on my service, and then of course to be able to sort of get the goods out of him of what he needs to sell to get out of Ohio. And I myself got out of Michigan, so no disrespect to the Midwest. The other thing is that he was working with a recruiter, and in some fields like his, you can work with a recruiter pretty effectively. And so he gave the resume that I did for him to the recruiter and said, so what do you think of this? And she said, this is great. I have a few little changes, but this is really great. This is really going to stand out for you. And so he got a job with Razorfish in Austin, Texas. Not that I can take credit. I'm really not, because he's a brilliant guy. And my job is to get you the interview, basically. Once you get into the interview room, I can sort of prepare you for that, because what I do to write your resume is interview prep, basically. It's making you think long and hard about what you've done and why it's important to the person who you want to hire you. So he got that gig, and then I just got a referral from him for somebody who, and as you know, some of you are entrepreneurs, so you will be able to appreciate this, but I just contracted with a referral from him for a guy who's the chief creative officer at that company in Maumee, Ohio, and he's having me do his resume, a cover letter, an executive bio, a LinkedIn profile, and his website copy. Woo! So yeah, that is what I call a success story for me. So I'm really going to talk mostly about resumes today, because resumes are sort of the text for any academics in the room who know what that means. But everything flows out of that. That is your bedrock. All these other personal branding things that you're going to do are going to flow out of that. So, and there are three things that are really hard to understand. The three things where I see these same, I would say, errors every time I get a raw resume. So they are what I like to call, these are the areas that I'm going to talk about today. Targeting, storytelling, and being as in human being. So the first one, and these are branding fundamentals. These are branding fundamentals no matter what you're selling. If it's yourself, if it's a product, if it's a service for somebody else, this is all critical stuff. And it's also all critical stuff if you're a writer. I mean, storytelling, obviously. But my whole career after I got out of the reference publishing has been in branding. It's been selling stuff. So this is all very fundamental. Excuse me. Okay, targeting. Your resume is a strategic document. One size does not fit all. I am really sorry to be the bearer of this bad news, but you cannot use the same resume for every job. You probably can't use the same resume for 2 or 3 jobs. You really need to tweak it for every application, every contact you make. You got to target. You have to make sure that that resume is pointing directly at this one important person. And so when I'm talking about targeting, I'm talking about the resume is not about you. It's about her, your dream boss. It's all about her. And some wise person said, and it's so simple, but I have to credit whoever that is, even though I don't know who that is anymore at this point. But her line was, it's not about what you have to sell, it's about what the employer needs to buy. So in a weird way, you have to let go of your ego, even though, you know, the resume is all about ego because you're selling who you are and what you do. You have to think about, never lose sight of my target. Who is my target? What does she need? I had a client say to me recently, I said, well, this is what I would do with your resume. I would really build up this stuff. This other stuff, I would include it, but I would only sort of spin it in relation to how it relates to your primary target. She said, but those are some of my biggest accomplishments. And I said, and they're amazing accomplishments, and I definitely would mention them, but they're not that important for your dream employer. So you're taking up room, precious real estate, in this document with stuff that is not going to ring her bells. It rings your bells, and I understand why, but it's not properly targeted. So I'm waiting to hear back from her about that. She may not be too happy. And so the way I look at it is, this is about ruthless prioritization and organization. So the jobs that I'm a fan of doing a traditional chronological order. I've kind of gone back and forth with this. I also like functional resumes where you list the dates on all your jobs, but you put the jobs that are the most relevant first. The jury's out on that. I'm kind of swinging back to traditional chronology now. But the jobs in your traditional chronology that are relevant to your dream boss, you expand on, you talk about, you tell stories, which I'm going to get to in a minute. The jobs that are not relevant or as relevant to your dream boss, whatever is relevant that you did in that job, that comes first, and you expand on that. And then everything else is a little bit smaller print underneath, and maybe you have 3 bullet points on that job instead of 5, which you'd have on the job that's right in the pocket for the next job. And then there are some jobs that we've all had that have nothing to do with our careers because we needed to make money. So you need to have those jobs on your resume, but maybe you just need to have where you worked, your job title, the months and the years that you were there, and one blurb about what you did. Anything you have that you think is relevant, that's what you include. That stuff is almost a little bit of a place saver, and you don't need to put too much in there about those jobs. The way I look at it is the employer wants to know that you were working, you weren't sitting by the pool eating chocolates, you weren't on the lam, you weren't in jail, you were a solid citizen. So that stuff has to go in there, but you just don't have to spend a lot of time with that. So again, ruthless prioritization and organization. You have to constantly be saying, have that face of that dream boss in your mind and say to yourself, does she care? Does she care? Is what I'm saying here going to indicate to her that I can solve her problems? If not, don't go into it. Or don't go into it in any kind of detail. So that's targeting. And I got to admit, it's hard to find the right target sometimes. I get potential clients who come to me, and they say, I'm going for this job, and I have to be the mean person to say to them, don't do it. You're not qualified for that job. You're just not. You have to read that listing, and you have to take it on faith that they mean what they say in that listing. Don't spend a lot of time and energy going after something that you don't have a chance for it. And a lot of those people will come to me, and they'll say, well, I'm not really sure what I want to do. I could do this, I could do that, and I sympathize with that, believe me. But I can't help you until you come to me and tell me what your dream title is, what your dream industry is, who your dream boss is. Ideally, give me a job listing. That's the best. That's ideal. That's when I'm most effective. If you give me a job listing, I will write your resume to that listing. And that tends to really work.